Today we are going to look at lesson 7.6 on midpoints. And our objective today is I can find the midpoint of a line segment in 2 out of 2 problems. Pretty straightforward. So today we are going to work in a Desmos, so that link will be in your class. And mostly I'm going to let you work through it on your own. It'll give you feedback as you go. But we will do a couple of problems here together just to make sure we are on the same page, figuring things out the same. So this first page in Desmos, be sure to bring this up and work along with me. Maddie earned an 88 on her first test score and an 80 on her second test. What is her average test score? Okay, so how do we figure out an average? Go over to the Desmos and put in some numbers. Try to figure out what the average between those two test scores is. Okay, did you figure it out? Were you able to get the number? How did we find an average? What does an average even mean? Well, an average is a way that we find a middle of a set of numbers. This is also sometimes called the mean or the arithmetic mean. So if we visualize this as a line, it makes sense that it's going to be the middle of that line. So we have the same distance on this side as on this side. So the way we find the mean, if you will recall, is we take the sum on the top of a fraction, the sum of the numbers divided by the count of the numbers. So we add 88 and 80 on the top, and then we count them, 1, 2, and put that on the bottom. That's how we get an average. 88 plus 80 is 168, and 168 divided by 2 is 84. So that's how we get this 84 number. That's the average of those two numbers. So pause the video now and go through the next several slides in Desmos. See if you can figure out how to get the middle of the next few lines. Then come back to the video and we'll review one of them. So now that you've tried to find the middle of these line segments, why do you think we were calculating the average earlier? How does the average relate to the middle of a line segment or the midpoint of a line segment? Well, you may have noticed that our x value for the midpoint is halfway in between the x values of the endpoints. Or another way to say that is it is the average. So our new x value is going to be the average of the other two x values. We'll add them together and divide by the count. There are 2 of them, 1, 2. So 1 plus 9 is 10, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 5 is our x value for our midpoint. We'll do the same thing for our y value now. We're going to find the y that's in the middle of this value and this value. In the middle of 6 and 2. Notice these are the y values over here, 6 and 2. So we'll take 2 plus 6 on the top, add them together, divide by the count. There are 2 of them. 2 plus 6 is 8, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our y value for the midpoint is 4. If we go meet up our new x value and our y value for the midpoint, we get a point right there at 5, 4. So that's how you calculate the midpoint of a line segment. All right, pause the video again, go through a few more, come back, we'll look at another example, but the next one will be without a picture. Okay, how did it go finding the midpoint of those graphs? Go pretty well? Not too bad? All right, so now we need to find the midpoint of these 2 points without a graph. Now, you always have the option of plotting a graph if seeing it helps you visualize it, helps you understand what we're looking for. So no one's ever going to stop you from drawing a graph and plotting these points if you want to do that. But you can also realize you actually don't need to, because finding the average, all we did was we took the x values and averaged them, and the y values and averaged them. We actually don't need a picture for that. So let's try it without drawing the picture. We're going to take the x values, 2 and -5, and find the average. 2 added to -5 on the top, divide by the count. 2 plus -5 is going to be -3 on the top, divided by 2. Overall, that will be -1.5. Notice we got a decimal here instead of an integer. That's okay. That happens sometimes. But that's a totally valid number on the coordinate plane. -1.5 is totally valid. So let's try our y values now. We have -9 and +15. We'll add those together on top and divide by the count. -9 plus 15 is going to be +6. Divided by 2 will be 3. So -1.5 is our x value, and +3 is our y value. Now we could plot these out, and this is especially helpful just for checking our answer to make sure it sort of looks right. So 2, -9, if we did 1, 2, -9 would be somewhere down around here. And then -5, 15, maybe kind of up around this area. And then -1.53 would be, -1.5 is maybe right about here, and 3. And we'd ask ourselves, does that look like it's about the middle? It's a little bit off because I'm just doing a very basic sketch here. This isn't very precise, but yeah, it does kind of look like the distance here is pretty similar to the distance here. So that's a good check to make sure that we did this correctly, that we used sort of the correct process. So go through the rest of these and see if you can come up with the midpoint. And that is everything for today. We'll look at our objective. I can find the midpoint of a line segment in 2 out of 2 problems.